So we have a shock poll coming out of Iowa that no one really saw coming and has everyone in the political world talking about it right now. Out of the state of Iowa, could this spell doom for the Trump campaign? Let's talk about it. So first, let's put it up on the screen now. This is our cover from Axios saying, shock poll, Harris grabs last minute Iowa lead over Trump. Something that no one really saw coming here. First and foremost, before we get into the details of this poll, I want to say that, as is true for any poll, never a good idea to take any poll by itself as gospel. With that being said, there are specific reasons why we're giving this poll a little bit more attention than you would give any one particular poll. Let's get into that here in a second. But first, let's go to the Axios article and read a little bit more about it. It says here that the poll should be taken with a grain of salt. They're also echoing the same thing I'm saying, as Harris was not expected to be competitive in the Hawkeye state. But pollster J. Ann Selzer is the gold standard in Iowa, and the poll hints that there may be surprises in store on election night. Harris has a 20 percentage point lead over Trump amongst women, and she's cut his lead among men in half since September, according to the new poll. Trump led Harris by 4 percentage points last poll in September. Seltzer said that it's hard for anyone to say that they saw this coming. So if you're not a political super nerd, you have no idea who the hell Ann Seltzer is. I also did not know who she was. Uh, you're probably wondering, why does this person's opinion matter and why are they considered the gold standard for polling? Well, she is considered to be one of the best pollsters in the nation, has a pretty decent track record to prove it. She is a member of the Des Moines Register. Their polling industry is considered to be one of the gold standards in the country because time after time after time, their accuracy is pretty on point. They're not nailing it exactly every single time, but it's got a better track record than most. Let's put this up on the screen really quickly here. It's from Matthew Klein, showing just what Seltzer has done in her actual poll findings and then compared to the actual result. So in 2022, she had Republicans plus 12 for the Senate in the state. They ended up being plus 12, so nailed that one dead on. In 2020, if you remember back in 2020, uh, the Biden administration, or I'm sorry, not the administration, but the Biden campaign was getting positive after positive after positive poll all across the nation. They even had a poll saying that like Biden was up by 17 points in Wisconsin. It was ridiculous. Meanwhile, she drops a R plus, 7 poll in Iowa, makes everyone double check what they're thinking. And then, in fact, lo and behold, Trump does in fact win by 8 points. Again, you can see it here in 2020 Senate. She was also pretty close when everyone was favoring the Democrats in that state. The Iowa challenger for Democrat for the Senate in this state was by everyone else was being said to be leading in those polls. She was accurate about it. You see the governor's race in 2018, she was a little bit off. The 2016 presidency, this was after Iowa had gone blue in 2008 and 2012. She accurately showed that it had not only moved to the right, but it had dramatically moved to the right. And then Trump did, in fact, win Iowa by 9 points. So you can see she has been bucking the trends of the national pollsters. When they were all going very heavy for Democrats, she's always been the one coming out and being like, no, my data is showing that the Republicans are actually doing very well in Iowa. So to see her be consistently on track, bucking the national trends and showing that things look different in her state, for her to come out with that same methodology and that track record behind her to come out and say, yeah, Kamala Harris right now is up 3 points on Donald Trump in Iowa. Hey, let's just say it like this. Let's say that, the polling, the margin of error here is like what, 4 points? Maybe even like just give her six, just for some extra wiggle room, right? Because Trump is an unprecedented figure when it comes to polling. Even if that was the case, that would still be Trump plus three in states, whereas you can look back and see he won by 8 and 9 in two elections where he either barely won or he barely lost. So the question really is, are we freaking out about Iowa or are we talking about something else? And for me, this is about larger trends, because at the end of the day, if Iowa has shrunk this much, what does that say about the rest of the Rust Belt states? So One more thing to note before we transition, there's another person who was echoing the same sentiment. We're going to put this up on the screen really quick by Heath Mayo, talking about again, if Ann Seltzer were to be off by almost 10 points here for her for to Trump to match his 2020 performance in the state, and he still lost that election. Ann Seltzer has never been off by more than 5 points, much less 10. See you on Tuesday. This is someone who's obviously very confident, thinking about what this might mean as a giant like in the macro as far as like how Kamala Harris might perform on Tuesday night on election night. But it's not just that the data in the overall was a really big deal. It's also the micro data that was going on inside of there. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. there were they were trying to figure out like how the gender divide was going, how the age divide was going. And I think the stat that stood out the most, particularly the one that I saw that was striking, was that Kamala Harris was up by a 28-point margin with independent women. Put this up on the screen here. This actually was flagged by Crystal Ball, who went through and looked at the crosstabs, something that's really caught me. I thought that it was a typo when I saw her put this here, but this is directly from the Des Moines Register here. Independent voters who had consistently supported Trump in the lead up to the election now are breaking for Harris. That's driven by the strength of independent women who back Harris by a 28-point margin, while independent men support Trump, but by a smaller margin. Similarly, and I think this is very key here, senior voters who are 65 years or older are favoring Harris. But senior women support her by more than a 2-to-1 margin, 63 to 28, while senior men favor her just by 2 percentage points, 47 to 45. And these results follow a September poll again that showed Trump up by 4. We kind of covered this a little bit ago. Also, a June Iowa poll which showed an 18-point lead over Joe Biden. So again, this is striking because the same pollster had showed that Joe Biden was underwater by 18, which I believe that, and that Trump was up by 4 not too long ago, which is kind of falling in line with where you would assume Iowa would be at, but still a little bit further away than where they were at before. To see independent women up by 28 points, to see seniors, let's just talk about seniors here for a second. They are the largest voting group in America as far as like how the percentage of seniors who actually vote versus the ones who don't vote. They come out and vote the most. That's the group you absolutely need to win when you're talking about an election. And if they are breaking that much for Kamala Harris, that is a nightmare for Donald Trump. Because again, we shouldn't just think about this as just like a microcosm of Iowa. Like, how is that also going to translate into the other swing states? I mean, is this actually going to put other states in play that, the Kamala Harris campaign wasn't thinking would even be in play? I mean, look, there's no way of knowing how accurate this is. I mean, we're going to find out on Tuesday night, but if this is the case, then this might end up spelling absolute catastrophe for Donald Trump and his campaign. In fact, this could be the start of a absolute landslide for the Kamala Harris campaign. I think Trump's team should feel very worried after seeing these results coming out of the Seltzer poll. Thank you for watching this video of independent thought. If you liked the conversation, please go ahead and give the video itself a like and be sure to subscribe for future episodes on the channel.